Hey, it is Mark McPherson here for Movies with Mark, movie critic for Moviespoon.com and TwinCitiesGeek.com. And joining me tonight is my lovely wife. And this is with Vision Goo on her channel at Twitch. I forget how to introduce her. She does great art streams every Wednesday. So
well, with you on them.
With me on them as well. So we're both on there. And yeah.
Oh, honey.
Is it not? Oh, whoa, what?
You were not. The background wasn't centered, and
Oh, it wasn't.
I guess I should have checked this.
Do you want it? Okay. Just a moment here.
There, that's better.
That much better?
Yeah, you had stuff outside of the.
Oh, I saw that the frame.
Outside of the background.
Oh, okay. Well, usually on this show we review the latest movies that are in theaters right now, but it's a little dry because we didn't actually. The only film coming out this weekend is Winchester, and there were actually no screenings for Winchester because I guess they figured, good.
Well, it's like my little screen's cutting into your head, so I'm just trying to. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, people. I gotta adjust the set a little bit. The background. Because you had it centered on you, but you don't have the
But I don't have the screen in the background? Okay. There's a new background I'm working with.
Yeah, just because we have a messy house. And this looks a little like
Yeah, it looks... You have cool stuff in the background.
Well, we also bought it to just... So when we had guests...
You can block off areas,
So we could block off our kitty litter box.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to look at that while they're sitting at the dining room table.
All right, so...
It's a little better. You can't see all the stuff behind you as well.
That's fine. I'll be at an angle. They can see when I get up. Or bob or weave. But it's right there if I need to present it. So yeah, like I was saying, usually we do movie reviews of the latest films that are currently in theaters right now, but there wasn't any for Winchester this week, just because I guess they didn't want to do a screening for a horror film in January, even though I love horror, but, whatever. So... Instead, we decided to take in some streaming content this week, so that way my wife could see it as well.
Yep,
so
I watched both of these, and I liked both of these, so...
Yep, one of them is a holdover from last year that we wanted to see, and one is a film that came out at Sundance.
That I have been longing to see since I heard about it like 3 years ago when they started making it, or even longer maybe.
There was quite a bit of chatter about it, just because
I've been wanting to see it for a long time.
And then we, in the great age where we could watch Sundance films on Netflix, we got a Sundance film as well. So I guess we'll start talking about Loving Vincent. So I know you got a lot to say about this, I imagine.
Well, we talked about it a little bit last night, but yeah, I really loved this movie. Of course, it's not 100% accurate, I'm sure, but it made me cry a whole lot.
In a good way.
Vincent Van Gogh has always been my, or Van Gogh, if you prefer, has always been like my favorite class, like well-known artist.
Mm-hmm.
I think, of course, most people know some of the more far-out parts about him, like the cutting off his ear part and that he killed himself. And this movie goes into a little bit more depth about how he was personally, and did he really kill himself, because there is some question as to whether that happened, and they do explore that in the movie, and I think it's still a little unclear at the end whether he did or not.
Yeah, they stage it kind of more like a Citizen Kane type deal, where you have one person takes place after Van Gogh is dead, and he's just kind of trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, they have a framing device. I actually don't remember what that character's name was. I just kept thinking Yellow Jacket guy.
His name was I'm trying to pronounce it right. His name was Armored Roland.
Okay, Armored Roland.
Yeah, and because apparently he's supposed to deliver a letter, and his dad, who's a postman, gives it to him to say, like, maybe you should go there and figure out what happened.
And they're both based off of people Van Gogh painted.
Yeah.
So they use that framing device, and it works well for the story. But The main thing that's amazing about this movie is that every frame is an oil painting.
Yes, that's the biggest thing.
That's the big draw, I'd say. And it's all done in the style of Vincent van Gogh.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an amazing way to show off an artist's kind of the genius of Van Gogh. And sorry if you don't like Van Gogh, because I'm going to kiss his ass this whole time. As like I said, he is since high school or earlier, my favorite artist.
Well, it's fittingly titled.
I don't paint usually in his style or anything like that, I mostly do abstract, and he's an impressionist, but
he's inspiration.
He is inspirational just because the way his paintings, they're of mundane things, but they're still very moving.
But there's
I'm like crying just thinking about it. Oh my god.
Well, because there's so much like texture and like it feels like it's alive.
Yeah, it does. Especially the famous ones like Starry Night. But I even love just the sunflowers and just his paintings of peasants even are just amazing, or of his bedroom or whatever. They're just all impressive to me. And there's something to be said about how subjective art can be in that regard.
Sure.
A lot of artists gain fame from after dying, because then their art is more exclusive. There's less of it.
Yeah.
And there won't be any more, so it's worth more in that regard.
Yeah.
But then also because a big part of what draws people to artists are their stories.
Mm-hmm. And
he was a very interesting character.
Yeah.
So that was, that's kind of a big part of it too. But his art style is also pretty revolutionary for the time. It wasn't anything anybody had seen at that time.
Yeah.
And just his use of color is just, really amazing.
Yeah.
He saw the world a different way.
Yeah. I think...
Choked up. And I didn't help that I started listening to Starry, Starry Night again before we started the stream. So
even...
Love that song.
Well, especially because it puts you in your head, because there's a different version of that in the ending theme there.
Yeah, I didn't like that one as much. I like the Don McLean version better. But, it's not like a terrible version or anything. But
yeah, they wanted to try a new version of it. Because, the main game...
That's a common thing to do.
Well, the main game of this whole film is just experimenting.
Yeah.
With trying to, because no one's ever done like a film where every frame is going to be based on like an oil painting.
Well, can you think of how difficult that must be to make that kind of thing in an oil painting?
Well, what they did...
I talked more about it last night, but oils, they take a really long time to dry.
Yeah.
For one. It's not the easiest thing to work with. You can change an oil painting in some regards more than acrylic, depending how you're doing it. But, to make every frame like that's very time consuming, and with the level of detail they had too. You could tell it was a painting. Like the farther things away, the harder it is to get detail. But Van Gogh didn't actually do super detailed paintings either.
And that's kind of what you want out of a film like that, is to experiment with it, because what they're essentially doing is just rotoscoping. They're filming the footage, and then they hand it off to
the painters.
Well, yeah, because this is the interesting, because they didn't actually use animators. They hired actual oil painters to just come in, take the frames, and just kind of paint an oil painting around that.
They painted the frames, because they did film the parts with green screen.
Yeah.
First. Yeah.
And this the thing with that is it seems like a little bit conflicting to me, just because in terms of how the oil paintings look, they're amazing.
Oh yeah. You could just frame any scene in that.
Oh yeah. Especially
hang it on your wall.
Especially since they perfectly time the storyboards to shoot footage that looks exactly like the paintings.
I know.
And then have them come to life, like they have
that one lady in the corner of the pub.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lady in the corner of the pub. They have the lady at the piano. They have the guy with
Yeah.
his cheek and his fist there,
Mm-hmm.
and they do look amazing. But like the only issue I have with that is just that because they're mostly just painters, they're mostly just going to be rotoscoping, and so there's kind of like if you look like every frame in this is beautiful, but like in terms of like actual animation, it's just kind of like the same kind of like rotoscope stuff that I've seen in other stuff, where it's just kind of like they paint over it, which is okay. I mean that's mostly kind of like the name of the game. Like with rotoscope, it's hard to kind of escape the specifics of like the animation there. I mean that was how like Richard Linklater made a Scanner Darkly, is he just grabbed a bunch of graphic designers and just brought them in to draw over this footage.
I kind of feel like this one worked a little better than A Scanner Darkly, though, as far as the animation went. Do you agree?
Yeah,
disagree?
Yeah. In terms of, I think in terms of how it looks. Well, actually, I would say that mainly for the footage with Roland when he's trying to discover Van Gogh. Mm-hmm. The only issue I kind of had was when we actually do like the flashbacks to Van Gogh, which are entirely in black and white, and that's when I think it kind of loses a little bit of that
when it's in black and white.
Yeah, it kind of loses that texture quality. I mean, they experiment a little bit. There's a really cool shot where he's washing his face and we see like kind of like the flickering reflection in the water. I think that really works well for black and white. But most of the time, if you're just doing black and white for an oil painting, it started reminding me of like when Ralph Bakshi did Wizards and he wanted to get extra footage, so he essentially just like did blowouts of like Xerox copies of like war footage. And it kind of reminded me of that, and that's where I kind of wish that maybe they would have taken a chance more on doing like animators to make it a little bit more like sketchier, have like kind of like the texture kind of have a little bit more movement to it there.
Yeah. Because
then when you're getting in black and white, you're getting really close to the realism.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the painters are getting like a little bit too close, where you're kind of looking at it, and you're almost kind of looking like, well, this is really close to being realistic. Like, it's not entirely realistic, but you're still kind of like, there's like that flickering notion that, like there could be more experimenting here. Especially because when we go back to like the amazing colored scenes, like we get stuff like there's some beautiful backgrounds here, like where they obviously just had one oil paint and they cut it out in the back. Like that opening scene in the bar was really cool to just look at that background. Like that immediately stunned you, I remember.
Oh yeah, it was a magnificent movie.
Yeah. And I can understand why they did some stuff. Like obviously there's some scenes where they cut out like just like the figure of like an oil painting and then sort of like painted around them inside a background, which I think is a good idea, because then it kind of grounds it more. Because then of course when we get scenes when the camera moves, when everything in like the scene is an oil painting, then you start seeing a little bit more movement. It can get a little bit jerky. Like Linklater did this with Waking Life, where he essentially rotoscoped everything and he kind of had like the shaky camera going. So you'd see different like layers coming in and out and made everything look lucid and weird and alive. So I think he was kind of going for that with his little dream sequences. But yeah, I think for like Vincent, if you want to keep it grounded, I think that really helps, especially when they start to because they mostly just do some experimenting with the transitions. Like when we transition between scenes or to Van Gogh's life, like
they had really great transitions.
Oh yeah,
they really they worked well.
Yeah, my favorite was when they were walking through the woods and you started seeing like this purple start to bleed down from the trees as we pan up to it.
Yeah, that was great.
That was some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I cannot recommend this movie any harder.
Well, if you're an artist,
I love to paint.
Yeah, if you're an artist, it's mandatory.
Even if you're not an artist, you'd like it. But
sure.
Yeah, especially if you're an artist and you like Van Gogh, I guess.
Well, if you're an artist, I think this would be mandatory.
Oh yeah, it's a fan.
Just because, like, even if you don't like it, it's just it's a great experiment to see, just because no one's ever done this before.
Yeah.
Just to see this kind of feat of having oil paintings as every frame alone is just great, especially because I think as like a positive and a negative of the film, like I was mostly paying attention to the technicalities
Well, that's you went to school for animation.
Well, yeah, I went to school for animation, but
got your bachelor's degree in animation.
True, but since it's a painting, your eye is always like moving with what's going on screen. So I noticed like little stuff like when you have an oil painting figure moving against like a background that's not moving, you can start to see you start seeing little smudges with the oil painting in the background of like the shadows.
Yeah. And
that was kind of cool because like initially I just thought like, oh, they just did an oil painting and then they cut out around the frame. But like no, they actually
it's oil painting.
well yeah, it's like an oil painting, but I wasn't sure how much like they separated from the background from the character. And there's some points where it kind of bleeds between the two. Like some scenes are obvious, some are not, and then there are just kind of some that go back and forth and keep playing with your perspective. So yeah, I really dug that part, and I think it's mostly sold on its gimmick, mainly because it's pretty quick. Like it's 90 minutes. Most animated films are pretty fast, they make the smart move of keeping it mostly to Roland's story and kind of making Van Gogh this sort of just kind of like more like a mythic figure that he's trying to figure out, because we really don't get any dialogue with Van Gogh, and that's mostly because he's not really played by that big of an actor here either.
No, what they mostly show him is in it's all like the black and white past scenes, but it's still loved it.
No, that's in terms of like a style choice, that's a really good route to take, because then I think if you're focused more on Van Gogh, you're kind of more paying attention to him more than like the actual kind of like build up around him.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of like the purpose of having an animated film like this, where it's kind of more of a tribute to him and trying to figure him out more while kind of appreciating his style that goes through there.
Because at first the main character of the movie didn't really like Van Gogh as a person, but then I think he grows more interested in him as he tries to deliver this letter.
Yeah.
Is there much more you want to say, or should we move on to the next movie? I mean, I loved Loving Vincent, but I don't want to bore people with my fangirling. So,
like, I will say that there's a few, like, because eventually, like the question arises with all rotoscope films is like, well, why didn't you just do live action?
There's a good reason with this one, huh?
Well, aside from the obvious, just because like oil paintings look cool in motion, and because you could have cool transition scenes.
Well, it just.
The big thing is that you can play with character to make them look more believable for the role.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, I know where you're going with the Chris O'Dowd and the beard thing.
Yeah.
But when you put the whole movie in Vincent van Gogh's style, you see more, what the hubbub is about his paintings.
Yeah.
Like you get more of a feeling for the man, and
it
sets the atmosphere more than a live action movie would.
Right.
Have you seen the movie Lust for Life or read the book?
I think I've seen the movie.
The movie, I think it's like a one-man thing with Leonard Nimoy, isn't it? I only watched a very short bit of it because I was like, eh.
Yeah, I thought it was just called Vincent.
Oh, maybe that was a different thing. No, there's a movie called A Lust for Life. I thought that was the one with Leonard Nimoy. Now I'm gonna have to look it up.
Because I'm pretty sure there was was it a stage production?
It might have been.
Because I do remember a stage production with them playing Vincent van Gogh. Remember that being pretty cool.
Yeah, there was a Vincent movie. I don't. It's a common. It's a. Lust for Life had Kirk Douglas in it, so I'm mixing up the two. I haven't seen A Lust for Life. I have a book by Irving Stone, who wrote the novel, but not that one. And I think I'd rather have that book than the book I did have. Although the book I do have looks interesting. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of books slated to read right now.
Sure.
A growing list. I started reading Murder on the Orient Express because I keep bitching about the movie.
And since you got the one with the current film, you can bitch more.
I I got the one with the film cover and
So-
film inserts.
So when you get to like the middle there, you can go, Brenna!
So wrong!
What did
But
you
I'm
do?
also reading Father Brown, and then, didn't I just say there was another book I want to read? And then I have a comic book. Well, not a comic book, it's a, like the thicker ones, the trades you call them?
Yeah, the trades.
Yeah, I've got a trade that I need to read too that I bought from the comic book store one day. I was going nuts at the comic book store.
As you do.
Actually, all three of us were that day, weren't we?
Everyone goes nuts.
Yeah.
Because, like, what else are you going to buy there?
It's our version of the candy store. This, we don't eat that much candy.
I think for most weirdos it is, yeah.
I think our kid got a bunch of books. Her Christmas money was burning a hole in her pocket, and that day, and then
Yeah.
and I got a bunch of books, and then
Well,
and you got a bunch of books because the manga table was $1 each.
Well,
we're like, yes.
we were on our way out, and then on the table is just sitting this fat stack of manga trades that are $1 each, and I'm like,
$1 each.
I can't.
Oh. So I
Well-
got a bunch of those to read.
And it's old stuff too that I
Yeah.
would want to read because there was like almost the entire line of Tezuka's Phoenix Saga.
He had to
that I-
stop me at 5 of Full Metal Alchemist. And our kid picked up 2 Dot Hack Sign. I don't think we're going to let her read those just yet, but I will read them.
Yeah.
You had to stop us, though, because
Yeah.
when me
She's going
and
nuts.
whenever I walk into a bookstore,
Mm.
or a comic book store for that matter, they're both books.
Yeah.
Or our daughter, for that matter. We
Mhm.
both kind of go a little crazy. And
Yeah.
she goes a little nuts at the library, too. You have to stop her.
Yeah. As you do.
The love for reading started young with her, although mine didn't start until around junior high. But,
Yeah, I've never read that book, Lust for Life, is it called?
Yeah,
Is it
I want to
most-
read that one.
Okay.
That's about Van Gogh, though, as well.
Okay, it's just a biography written by someone?
I don't think it's necessarily a biography.
Or is it kinda like a-
based off of... Let's see, the movie with Kirk Douglas is, let's see, it's adapted from a novel by Irving Stone.
Okay.
And it sounds like it's basically biographical. It covers the same subject matter as Loving Vincent, but it's probably not done, it doesn't sound like it's done through the same sort of framing device. So I'm interested to see it and compare it to how it compares to Loving Vincent, because I think
Yeah.
Loving Vincent was awesome, but I think a big part of what made it so awesome was its framing device,
Mm-hmm.
because it's almost like a mystery, and then and I love mysteries.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
totally
the art style, like the fact that it's done in animation with the oil paintings.
Yeah.
So
Like, it's straight up, like...
let me know in the chat if I'm fangirling too much over this. I just really love Vincent Van Gogh, and I love, painting and all that. So the movie was, like, extra great for me.
I think it's kind of more, it's kind of like a cross between, like, Citizen Kane and Rashomon. Where
I
you...
didn't see Rashomon.
Well, Rashomon is it's the Japanese film where we get multiple people's perspectives on what happened on a certain event. Like everyone,
Yeah.
there's been many different versions of that story. So essentially, it's like trying to find out this man's life, but it's told from multiple people who have different ideas and visions about Van Gogh. So you get a lot of perspectives, you get a lot of cool animation there. I think its biggest selling point is just is mostly the gimmick, but as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. I kind of admire it the same way that I admire like Waking Life. Like Waking Life kind of gets lost in its gimmick and its visuals and its rotoscoping, but it works. You can't take your eyes off it. So
I'm not familiar with Waking Life. What's that one?
it's a Richard Linklater film where it's mostly just this kid having this dream that he might not have woken up yet, so he mostly just goes around to different people and get their interview. It's mostly just a bunch of like talking head interviews, but done in like rotoscope, so they play with the animation. So
I feel like since you keep looking at me, we should put this camera on some books or something.
yeah, I try to stay more to the camera.
Yeah, gosh, I just can't say how much I love Vincent.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should move on to A Futile and Stupid Gesture, because it was also a really good movie that I would also recommend. And it's on Netflix, so that's pretty easy. I mean, Loving Vincent we rented from Amazon, which I think was like $4.
Yeah, $4 average.
And then Futile and Stupid Gesture is on Netflix. And that one was pretty funny. And I'm not sure. There's one part I don't think we should reveal, although it's really easy to kind of find out if you look up the person it's about. I think you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be too much of a spoiler, depending on how much you know about National Lampoon.
It was funny, but yeah, I don't know. As someone who didn't know much about National Lampoon, aside from the movies, Caddyshack and Animal House, well, I think I knew it was a magazine too. But I didn't know about the guy, and I was looking him up as we were watching it, and I'm like, why can't I find any pictures of this guy as an older man? That actor playing him as an older man looks really familiar, and I know it can't possibly be that guy. So, who is this actor?
Martin Mull.
Martin Mull, yeah. And I've seen him in loads of things. Because he's been in loads of things. But his comedic timing in this movie is spot on. And the actor that plays... I can't think of the main character's name.
That plays the young version?
The actual guy.
It's Doug Henny.
Doug Henny.
Doug Henny's the real guy, yeah.
The movie is about Doug Henny. So the actor who plays him is it Bill Hader? Because I get him mixed up with other people.
It's Will Forte.
Will Forte.
But that's a common mistake.
I always mix him up with Bill Hader, so I always forget. And which is even worse because they mention that he's being played by Will Forte in the movie.
Yeah.
So
it's very fourth wall breaking.
Get him mixed up with Bill Hader. Well, the whole thing is breaking the fourth wall because the older Kenny is talking to the audience.
Right.
But it's great. It's funny. It's funny the actors they chose to portray the characters because like Joe Hale looks nothing like Chevy Chase, and I think they point that out.
Yeah.
They point that out in the movie, and he's like, "Oh, do you really think I look like Will Forte?" You know.
Yep.
So, are they like? Do you think I really looked like Will Forte when I was like 20 something? Do you think Will Forte is actually 20 something? So that was pretty funny too, and
well, Mull...
Sorry, this is Movies with Mark, and I'm not letting Mark talk. You go.
No, that's fine, because you usually don't see many of these movies, so yeah, we'll just let you go.
Well, the last couple movies you watched that we talked about last week sounded like such a snore. They were so out of the realm of movies I actually watch. I was just kind of bored. So,
well, I think
more to say this time.
to the film's benefit, yeah, like because like Martin Mull is entirely like he's the narrator and the fourth wall breaker who's just there at every point to snipe the film. Like he begins the film by basically arguing with the directors, saying like, what should I say for an opening line? Oh, say this, Doug. And he says, no, fuck you. And then throughout it, he keeps commenting like, I don't really look like that. There are a whole bunch of other writers we had National Lampoon, but we're not going to show them in this film.
We don't have time to follow all these characters. They're like, why are they all white guys? It's like, well, we just didn't look for any black people. We weren't actively discriminating. And, interestingly enough, there's also very few Jews. And they're like, oh.
Well, they're saying this to, like, two black actors who come up and say, and they're just like, well, we didn't really go out looking for them. They're like, yeah. It's like, well, to be fair, we didn't really hire Jews either. So,
well, actually, the reason that would be unusual is because in comedy and actors and directors and anything to do with entertainment industry, there's a surprising large representation of the Jewish people. Yeah,
and their compared
to the population of the United States, anyway.
Yeah, and their whole deal was, they were going to be counterculture all the way. So and
they certainly were.
Yeah,
they were getting sued by everybody, right?
And that's like the best part is just watching Matt Walsh play Simmons, the guy who's trying to keep the office together, and it's mostly just him like bursting out of the office saying like, okay, who did this? We're being sued. We're losing money. And so he gets to like just get crazy and angry, and then just start whimpering and simpering when like they start like beating the crap out of him at one point. So
and then like anytime someone tries to leave, it's like, no, don't. Oh, so I can't remember the character on Reno 911. Or the actor's name who plays this character who's also in this movie, but his character was really funny.
It's Tom Lennon, who you might know as Dangle from Reno 911.
It's also hard because like he lost a lot of weight in the face, so the last couple movies I saw him in, it took me a minute to figure out who it was.
So he's rail thin.
Well, because he was in that other movie we streamed, the small Christmas movie.
Pottersville.
Yeah, Pottersville. He was in that. He was kind of like a villain in that, and that was pretty funny too. But
yeah. He's great as that sort of like kind of inept crazy guy, and here he's playing Michael O'Donoghue, who's essentially kind of like the Hunter S. Thompson of National Lampoon, who's like always like constantly like writing crazy letters and wearing shades and going nuts and starting fights and bringing in bombs and knives and going nuts in the office. So it's always fun to watch him whenever he's on screen, especially since like Tom Lennon, you always know him as kind of like the weirdo. And here he goes like super weirdo, like completely nuts the whole time. Where you almost kind of
does it well.
It almost gets to a point where you almost wish there were a Hunter S. Thompson film with him in it, just to see what would happen if he went that far. Because I'd kind of be interested to see maybe
he could do it. He could do it. He'd probably have to fight Johnny Depp for the role though.
Yeah, I could beat him.
Well, Johnny Depp has slipped a lot in the public's eye. Say what you will about whatever is going on in his marriage, but I'd say that Alice in Wonderland did worse for him. So, for his reputation. All those Pirates movies.
Never gonna stop.
Really made him slip in my eyes anyway.
But this whole film is just like, it's amazing because like there's so many comedians and like comedic figures here. Yeah. And they're
they just pop in everywhere.
And most of them are played by a few familiar comic talents. Yeah. Like you have Matt Lucas playing one of the English writers in The Office.
I did want to say that Matt Lucas, I mean, he was funny in this, as he was always in it for himself, his character anyway.
Yeah.
But that was funny. And when I looked up what the actual person he was playing looked like, he was pretty close.
Yeah.
So that was interesting too.
He ended up in the Spinal Tap. So.
Yeah.
which may be cool. Like maybe almost want to see. Like, man, what do you look cool in that? So, but there's so many, and like because they want to try to be all encompassing of National Lampoon, so they try to throw everyone up on screen like Bill Murray and Harold Ramis and Jim Belushi and Ivan Reitman and Rodney Dangerfield, and they just get all these different actors to try to play them.
The Rodney Dangerfield impression vocally matched, and the Harold Ramis looked pretty close.
Yeah, so and they made
Bill Murray wasn't that bad, that far apart either. So that was interesting.
Well, especially when you consider like Bill Murray is a tough act to follow like that. So I think they did as well as they could with that. They made the smart choice with Rodney Dangerfield by mostly obscuring his face.
Yes.
Like they shoot him from a distance, you don't see him, you just kind of hear him so the whole time.
The actor is way thinner than the actual Rodney Dangerfield was at
that
time too.
That's true.
I mean, like, they had Joe Hale all over this movie, and he looks absolutely nothing like Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
I guess what got him in was that he's worked with Chevy Chase probably in Community, so maybe that was his
I'm guessing,
way in. I don't know.
I'm guessing that's probably what they figured. It's like, well, who spent the most time with Chevy Chase? Oh, I guess Joe McHale.
Well, that, and they have a lot of NBC people in this.
That's true.
And the NBC people always seem to stick together. So.
Yeah. There's even a few comedic figures that they just kind of like sneak in at some places, like Seth Green is in there very briefly as Christopher Guest.
I know, and I was trying to think of what Christopher Guest looked like or what I'd be familiar with him with, but it's like Seth Green is so flipping short compared to everyone else in this movie.
I think Guest is mostly known for like the like Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show.
I saw Best in Show, I think, but it was quite a long time ago, so I don't remember anything from it.
The most surprising thing, like I actually went back to go watch and find this out, is that when they're shooting the high school issue, they snuck in Paul Rudd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's kind of snuck in there. So yeah, if you just look around the frame, you could probably find some more crazy people there.
Well, I'm sure that they'd all been inspired by the comedians that were portrayed in this movie and by Kenny as well, you know, National Lampoon. Definitely. So they wanted in, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of like how they all want to be in Star Wars and, gosh, there was something else where it's like, oh, how many, you know, cameos can you fit in this? But yeah, there was...
Well, if you ask a comedy, well, if you ask like any comedian, like, hey, you want to be in this movie about National Lampoon? Like, of course they're gonna say hell yeah.
Well, they should if they're a comedian worth their salt, I'd say. You know.
Yeah. Even the David Wayne is in here. He's the director of this film as well. Most people might know him from the comedy group Stella, or if you're bigger in animation, you probably know him as the Warden from Super Jail.
Super Jail, yes.
Yep.
It's been so long since we watched that show. That was a good show. Didn't the studio go under, though? Is that why there isn't anymore? Or was that a different studio? That was the Frisky Dingo studio, the studio that did that.
Yes.
Maybe.
And they shifted studios too, because the first season they had Augenblick. Okay. And then Augenblick went on to do other stuff, so then they passed it over to what's it called, like Titmouse or something like that.
That's what I was. That was what I was thinking. It was Titmouse, but I didn't want to say in case I was wrong.
No, it pretty much, like, Titmouse does like so much now. You could probably just like guess, and they'd probably, if it's an American animated adult show, it's probably them. So, yeah. David Wayne is he's done a lot of work behind the scenes with writing and directing comedy, and I think he does a pretty good job here, mostly because he keeps it very fast.
It was very fast paced, but good. And I think it made me cry at some points, even though it was comedy, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just a crybaby.
And I think that works to the benefit of the film, because then it doesn't get as lost in sort of like the melodrama, because there is quite a lot of material here that could be reaped for melodrama.
Well, yeah, but so the guy who is in it, there's clearly some times where he's depressed and all that. Mm-hmm. But he was a very comedic person, so it wouldn't be, you know, in his spirit to make something soppy.
Right.
But you can still connect emotionally to it.
Yeah.
Even through the comedy. So. Yeah,
because they tried to maintain, the focus, like, because he was all about comedy all the time, and it did affect his...
Inappropriate comedy, even.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a scene where he's smoking pot on TV, and they're like, is that a marijuana cigarette?
It's like you were controversial for showing the controversial issue with like the nude women. Like, oh, this one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, is this the one you're talking about?
Is this one?
It has it full on screen and they've got it blurred out a little bit. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean, like we said with Loving Vincent, you can tell they're embellishing stuff, but it's all in the name of having fun with this material. Which
actually, they pointed out that they embellished things and gave you a list that I guess if you pause it, you might be able to read it. So.
They do that old like Simpsons gimmick where like they flash the credits. It's like, by the way, all this stuff is a lie midway through this.
Yeah, well. I mean, if you're going into a movie, biopic or not, you know, there are always going to be embellishments. There might be blatant falsehoods, even.
Oh yeah,
it's a movie. What the movie gets you to do when you see a biopic, though, or a documentary, is to look further into it if you're interested.
It's to give you
that way you actually learn.
Yes, it's to give you a kind of a perspective and a tone for what it is, because like films by their essence are a lie.
Yeah.
Because that's like the whole idea.
It's entertainment.
Like if you did a documentary about like what happened over the course of 24 hours at a gas station, unless that film's 24 hours, you are lying to the audience. Because saying like, well, I cut out the first 3 hours. Well, did anything happen during those 3 hours that was interesting? Maybe something did, maybe something didn't. But we won't know because the director is directing it, to condense it to make it work.
Of course, documentaries are always going to have a bias, and even biopics will have a bias depending on how they felt about the person.
Oh yeah. And that's because like there is kind of a bit of a, well, for one, because it's Sundance, so anytime like a film goes to like Sundance, there's always like a massive direction one way or the other. Either people are clapping or people are booing. Like there doesn't really seem to be much of a middle ground there. So this film, I forget what it was, but last time I looked, it was kind of like split between critics. Even though most of everyone who I've talked to, critics and other people that have agreed, like, yeah, we really dig this film. So it is kind of up in there. And a lot of people who didn't dig it were the ones who were expecting kind of more for it, who were expecting kind of more drama to be evoked from it, more deeper to explore rather than just having fun with Doug Kenny.
Yeah, I think that those people are kind of missing the point of what someone who wrote Caddyshack would be like,
Yeah.
The guy who wrote Animal House, you don't make a movie about him, like, being melodramatic and soppy and, like... I mean, there were drugs, and he's clearly depressed and feeling like he's not good enough. But that's not the kind of person he is to just sit there and, like... I mean... Sorry for all the filler words, but... I'm trying to find the right word to say. I guess I started talking too soon.
It's been a joke.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
He didn't seem like the kind of person who would want you to sit there and cry about it. He'd want there to be a joke in there.
Yeah.
He'd want it to be... He seemed to be the kind of person who wanted to make people laugh.
Yeah, because that's his whole goal, and like you kind of you feel for him on that level because he's still trying to be funny the whole time, and he's constantly working, constantly trying to improve himself. That even while we're getting kind of like these funny scenes of him shooting Animal House and Caddyshack, he's still off into the side, just going nuts in his own mind. Like there's one point where
it's not good enough. It's just never good enough.
Like there's one point
it's not funny enough.
When he's shooting Caddyshack, where he starts hallucinating Bill Murray just breaking into song about how shit his life is.
Yeah.
And it's like it's funny and at the same time both sad because like it's like a funny idea for a skit in his mind, but also sad because it's true.
But he had so much and he just couldn't enjoy it because he still didn't feel like enough. Yeah.
And I think that's, it comes, and I think that came from, like, the drive where he knew he wanted to just consistently be funny. Mm-hmm. Like, he always wanted to make, to like, go further than he'd ever gone before. Like, he would just, like, he'd start, like, taking drugs and instantly start writing something. Or he'd take on...
Cocaine flipping everywhere in this movie. Jeez.
Or he'd take on so many jobs that he just that he would need, like, and that, like, they have his character kind of explain, like, look, if you want to meet these deadlines, you start doing these drugs, then you start getting paranoid, so then you start working more, and then you take more drugs, and you keep going through the cycle over and over again. So it's just...
Of course, the only drug we do is coffee and alcohol, right?
Yes.
Barely alcohol, though. Just mostly coffee. Stay awake. Mm-hmm. Stay awake.
Sweet inspiration.
That's the part I struggle with, even doing these streams, staying awake after working a whole day of work and, getting up bright and early before the sun comes up and then going to bed late after the podcast. I keep wanting to call this a podcast, but it's a stream. They're very similar concepts.
Yes.
Though, so.
But yeah, I mean, I dig how like the performances are fun to see. I think you might be a little bit more judgmental if you watch this just after seeing, there was a documentary called I'm trying to remember the full title. It was like Drunk, Stupid, Stone, Dead, which was
interesting.
I think you might have watched some of it.
Maybe. I don't know. We watch a lot of things, and I have a hard time keeping things straight sometimes.
Yeah,
so.
It's essentially...
These ones are a little fresh in my mind because we watched them, like, Monday,
last week.
Tuesday, or... Didn't we watch one of them on Tuesday? We watched Living Vincent on Tuesday.
Yep.
And then we watched Futile and Stupid Jester on, like, Friday, didn't we?
Yep, when it came out. So yeah, I mean, there's... there's a lot to take in here, but I think that especially like if you make it a double feature with the Drunk Stupid Stone Dead documentary, it fills in a little bit more of the gaps and covers more of National Lampoon after Doug Kenny.
Maybe I should watch that one again then.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
It's a great,
interesting.
Yeah, it's and I think it's kind of framed the same way too, where it's very fast. They focus a lot on the humor. They cut to a lot of like the publications and illustrations.
Yeah. I laughed a lot during a Futile and Stupid Gesture.
Yeah.
I cried during Loving Vincent and was moved, and then I watched a Futile and Stupid Gesture, and I laughed and then I cried.
Then he got moved.
And I was moved, yes. Yeah. Especially that last scene. Oh my god.
Because like if you felt like they didn't cover enough in Futile and Stupid Gesture, Drunk Stupid Stone, they do cover a lot more. Like they briefly touch on like the one issue that sold the most, where they put the gun to the dog's head.
Oh yeah.
And said, "Buy this issue or we shoot the dog."
But like the gun's not loaded, I think.
Yeah, it clearly wasn't loaded, but it's funnier to think like, I don't know if it's loaded.
Well, but the main focus of Futile and Stupid Gesture, of course, though, is Kenny, whereas the other movie you're referring to, which I've already forgotten the title of,
Drunk Stupid Stone Dead.
Yeah, is on National Lampoons.
Yeah.
Right. So.
But it's I'd say more than half that film is mostly about Kenny.
Well,
too, so.
It has to be because he founded it.
Yeah.
So.
Because he's got like, I think he's probably got the most interesting story to tell. There's a little bit of crazy stuff to tell about like kind of like Reitman and Belushi. There's some crazy stuff there.
Well, yeah, because Belushi was in A Futile Stupid Gesture too. Not a whole lot, but he was there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, obviously, like I think the documentary it's more informative, but this is just kind of like if you like watching comics, just play up some of like the greatest moments in National Lampoon's history, and there's a lot. Like they cover the illustrations, the articles that get them in trouble, the radio program. The radio program stuff is the funniest stuff, I think.
That'd be great to listen to that radio program. It's funny.
And then just watching them try to portray Animal House in certain scenes from Caddyshack was kind of interesting. So, they're obviously not pitch perfect because you have so many actors here together that obviously not all of them work that well. Like, because obviously, like, we had like some misgivings about Joel McHale.
Yeah, it was just weird because he doesn't look anything like Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
And the wig he was wearing looked really off too.
Yeah.
But whatever.
but their heart is in the right place, and they make the right jabs and stabs that you expect from this type of film. Mostly because like National Lampoon, they would always like point out like the craziest stuff and go for it, and I think they do that very well in this film. As opposed to just kind of like half-assing, because like one of the things I found interesting was that the National Lampoon magazine stopped publishing soon after Vegas Vacation, which is kind of like the only vacation film that National Lampoon took their label off of. So that was kind of a sign of the times. But yeah, it's it's hard to like recommend like Loving Vincent we can recommend because it's on video, but like Futile and Stupid Gesture is kind of hard to recommend because it's on Netflix, so you definitely go see it. If you don't have Netflix, go get it so you can watch this film. So yeah, I mean I'm not in love with the film. I think it kind of drags when they get towards the end there.
I liked it.
I mean I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I think that like at some points I wish they went a little more crazier towards the end, but I understand like when they get to the third act they kind of got to ramp it down just because it is going to get a little bit more dark. So
yeah. Man, he sure did a lot of cocaine. It was like in big bowls and stuff. It's like,
yep.
Dang.
And they freely admit, like, yeah, we did cocaine. It was everywhere.
That seems to be like a really destructive one, by how it's portrayed. I mean,
yeah.
Dang. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's not like the most like ringing endorsement for cocaine ever either with what happens in the end. Really? So yeah, it's telling sign. But yeah, funny movie.
Yeah. Funny movie until you get to the end. Well, they had a funny part there too.
I think it's funny in all the right ways.
Yeah.
That's the best thing because it's got a lot of heart.
As funny as you can be with that subject matter.
Yeah.
By the end,
Yeah. So definitely, I think Drunk Stupid Stone might still be on Netflix. So possibly have a double feature with that. So that's the way to go.
Yeah.
So we definitely recommend both. It was a good week that week.
Yeah, I like both of these. I've seen both of these, which I can't usually say on this, because he goes to the movies without me. So
yeah, but I was trying to think of some other stuff. Like we got the Super Bowl coming into town.
Screw the Super Bowl.
I know, but yeah, it's not every day because it comes to...
They're going to come here and freeze their asses off.
Yes.
So we take joy in that.
Enjoy Minnesota. So I was trying to think of... because I started writing a book about this too, but I'm trying to think about, like, what is my favorite film shot in Minnesota?
Well, I know you like Fargo a lot, but then, I can't think of the name right now, but what's the one... where there is it's like a bank heist kind of movie, but the guy with the brain damage stops them. It wasn't brain damage, but I can't think of his name. Or Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in it.
Lookout.
That was Minnesota, wasn't it?
I think that might have been Wisconsin.
Oh, darn.
I'm pretty sure it's that. It feels like it should be in Minnesota.
I thought you told me it was Minnesota, but yeah, it feels like Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think Juno takes place in Minnesota, but isn't actually filmed here. But that wouldn't be one that you... I don't think you liked that one.
I'm okay with it.
It was okay, but I think if I watched it again today, I wouldn't like it as much as when I first watched it.
Yeah.
Mallrats was filmed at the Eden Prairie Mall.
Eden Prairie Mall. Yeah.
And then, let's see, what else was filmed here?
Purple Rain. That's a big one.
Purple Rain.
We got Prince. And then the lesser films, Under the Cherry Moon and Graffiti Bridge, which nobody remembers for good reason.
Oh, for the Prince movies?
Yeah, for one starring Prince. Because I think he directed those too.
Yeah.
Because I think Graffiti Bridge had Morris Day, and Morris Day was trying to buy up the club because he ran a bunch of gangs at the Seven Corners, I think. So, pretty crazy.
I remember. Oh, Grumpy Old Men.
Grumpy Old Men is a big one, yeah.
A Serious Man.
Mm-hmm.
Did I see? I think I saw that one, didn't I?
A Serious Man?
Yeah.
I don't... You might have. It's supposed to take place around St. Louis Park.
I don't think I've seen it, but I think I should.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's not the Coen's best. It's kind of like the Coen brothers, more kind of like lucid comedies, kind of like Burn After Reading and Hail Caesar, stuff like that. So.
See, Drop Dead Gorgeous, but they all have those atrocious fake accents on.
Yeah.
The Mighty Ducks, I haven't seen that in such a long time.
You haven't seen The Mighty Ducks?
I've seen it. I just haven't seen it in a very long time. Oh, A Simple Plan.
Oh, yeah. That's the other one I was debating between. Because that is such a well-written film, and a real surprise for, like, Sam Raimi. Because Raimi, you expect to do more kind of, like, genre stuff, and here it's a very, just very, like, well-shot thriller in, like, a very cold, rural place in Minnesota.
Sorry, I just looked up the post. I clicked on Angus, which was filmed here.
Angus!
And there's this kid with these massive ears on the poster, and it's really out there. I don't know.
I'm not sure if it was cleared up or not, but apparently Angus was the rights to that film were bought by somebody in Europe.
Yeah, it said German something, I think.
Yeah, and then they went missing. So
it doesn't look like a good one. Hey, I didn't know.
No.
I didn't remember that Drop Dead Fred was filmed here. I really liked that one.
Mm-hmm.
Dear White People was filmed here.
Yep.
The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Feeling Minnesota. Well, I would hope that one would be filmed here.
No.
Grumpy Old Men. Well, obviously.
Interestingly enough, I think there's a film called
Jennifer's Body was filmed here.
I think so, well, because Diablo Cody.
Oh, I've got it.
What?
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. Yes. The Twin Cities Police.
We've already mentioned on previous streams our issues with their portrayal of Minnesota in that movie.
But it's so hilarious.
I think around Christmas we did, right?
Well, it's like people who would see like Fargo would think like, oh, they're embellishing Minnesota. No, Jingle All the Way is embellishing Minnesota all the way throughout that film.
The Untamed Heart.
You know the odd thing? There's a film called The Great Minnesota Bank Robbery.
And it's not filmed here?
And it's not filmed here.
Oh, I remember that You'll Like My Mother is filmed here because it was filmed in the Glen Sheen Mansion.
That's right.
Which, as you may or may not know, is well known because that is where the Congdon lady was murdered. I can't remember her first name.
But that caused...
I read a book about her, the daughter, Elizabeth Congdon, was murdered there. And there was conspiracy... I think he was acquitted that Marjorie's husband had murdered them, but I'm pretty sure... It was... the conviction was overturned by the Minnesota Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And he pleaded guilty and submitted a full confession. He was released from prison in 1988. He committed suicide. And I believe she might still be in prison. She was in prison for arson. And she was once wanted for bigamy, it said. I did read a book about her, but that was over a decade ago. So it's a little like, But they don't speak about the incident. It says on Wikipedia they don't speak about the incident there, but on the tour. But I've been on the tour. Yeah. So they kind of mention it, but they don't want to say anything if anyone in the family is there.
Right. Because, didn't some crazy crap go down after they filmed there? I thought like some like crazy crap went down after they filmed there.
Well, let me see.
Like something went down with the family, I think, when they finished filming.
With the family? Well, she was murdered in 1977, and it was filmed in 1972. So. Oh. Yeah. Okay. She was murdered.
Okay. I thought there was something else that happened between there. So.
Doesn't say anything about it. I don't know. They never mentioned it on the tour.
Okay.
If there was.
All right.
Did I take you there on the tour? Did we go there together once?
I think maybe we might. Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. We didn't.
No, maybe you did.
Did it?
I think maybe we decided not to because it's actually quite expensive and you didn't seem that interested.
Oh, yeah. I remember now.
Someone in the chat's telling me where they buy their guns from. Good for you.
Okay.
It's named T-Rex. Is that a joke that I'm not getting?
I don't know. Buy T-Rex guns, I guess. But yeah, what are some Minnesota films? Actually, I remember just because I remember when I went to the.
My eyes so itchy today.
We went to the.
Itchy every day.
What's
dry in here?
I'm trying to remember. Was that the Imogene theaters? They start having that.
Imogene. That reminds me of a character in a book that takes place in Minnesota.
You got it.
In Staggerford, actually, which the writer wrote a few books that took place in Minnesota, and Imogene was one of the characters. But you know what? There is a movie with Angela Lansbury that takes place in Minnesota based off of one of those books. I had to read the book Staggerford in high school, and that's...
Yeah.
Whoever wrote that it's related to that. What's Sweetland? Have I seen that?
Sweetland.
I don't think I've seen that.
It sounds familiar, but no.
Oh, I have seen that. That's the one about the woman that comes over after World War I to marry an immigrant farmer. Oh, yeah. And she's German, so they kind of shun her. Mm-hmm. It's based off a short story, I believe, and there are differences between the movie and the short story. But I did read the short story in like junior high, so I could be wrong. But I think that if I remember correctly, they had to bury her outside of town on their farm. They buried her on the farm because they didn't want to bury her in town with the people who always shunned her or something like that.
Ah.
But I don't remember... I don't think that happened in the movie per se, but they did lift a lot of the other stuff. But I don't know, they changed things around. So, I don't know.
Well, they did that with... Well, I guess what I was going to mention, I think I mentioned before, but like the Imaging Theater, they have like an intro now where they introduce the theaters and they keep talking about how like Minnesota loves movies and they just name drop all this stuff through describing Minnesota.
I interrupt you so much.
No,
I say as I interrupt you.
That's okay, I said that before.
A Prairie Home Companion. Oh.
That's total.
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes.
Movie. Mystery Science Theater, of course, is always filmed in Minnesota. Wait, was the newer one? Hi, Pookie.
Hey, Boogie's
nice
there.
to see you again.
No,
well, see you, but you know.
Sadly, no. The new version is not filmed in Minnesota. So
that is a sin.
That's the problem because like they have.
It needs to be. I think that's why we didn't watch the whole thing, right? Or you didn't watch. It just was not the same.
Well,
they kept trying to call back to it, but the actors were not doing well.
Well, the problem with the new one is the riffing on it. It feels. It feels like they're struggling to get the jokes out as quickly as they could. They don't feel as natural. Like
I feel like they were trying to do a formula.
Yeah, and they feel like they were trying to like rattle off the riffs as quickly as they could to get as many as they could in there, as opposed to like when we had like Trace Ballou and Kevin Murphy. They were delivering their lines with just kind of like an ease, almost kind of like they were just making them up out of their head.
Yeah.
So they sounded more natural when they were doing it.
Well, and you know the things that I really like about Mystery Science Theater are like the Mads and stuff.
Yeah. And
the way they tried to like put Pearl in there and she didn't even want anything to do with this show is what it felt like. Do you know what I mean? Well, it's like when did the doctor have time
to do all this
to have a kid?
Well, that was one of the.
How did he do that?
That was one of the glorious things about Mystery Science Theater is that it felt like homegrown Minnesotan just because all 10 seasons
the appeal.
All 10 seasons were shot here with just local people or people they found around here, and I think that's probably the new one is they want to hire on like bigger talents to track names, like Patton Oswalt and Felicia Day, and they want to get them on there, so they're probably not going to come down to Minnesota and film in a weird warehouse in Edina. So.
Well, and nothing against Felicia Day, but I guess I say that, but then I'm going to say this, which is I don't think she's a particularly good actress. Yeah. So,
well, I think like we appreciated Mystery Science Theater not so much because it was like the production values. Yeah. Because it was a cheap ass show. It was cheap as hell.
For sure, yeah.
But that's what was so
part
lovable.
Of the appeal.
Yeah.
Not the CGI backgrounds and stuff. So.
No.
And what was with the weird band thing?
They're putting way too much into this.
Yeah, they put too much in, and like the intro is weird.
Yeah.
Like the intro song.
Because they keep cutting back to the story, and it's like.
No.
That's too weird.
No, they put too much in there.
Yeah.
Where they have to, he has to go back to the story every time that they do the intro, and then go back. What the heck?
It's like you don't have to, and I understand they want to do that because they want to have cold opens, but it's like you could do that and still, you could not repeat the story and still have cold openings, you know? Yeah. You don't have to do that.
It's too convoluted of a song.
Yeah. That was the glorious thing. Like they shot it like a warehouse in Edina. The fan club was out of Hopkins, which is still on all the episodes. Like when they get towards the end there, they start saying, "Hey, fan club's in Hopkins." We used to live in Hopkins, so every time that came up, we go, "Yay,
Hopkins!"
Hopkins. And I think they had the premiere somewhere in Minneapolis. I think so. Nice. For the film. So. Man, I love that film
Minnesota Pride.
I love that film, despite the fact that the movie they riff on is not that bad actually.
Oh yeah, what movie?
This Island Earth.
Yeah, I don't remember.
They had the big-headed Metalunans.
Oh.
They had the Interocitors and fired lasers.
The ones that stick out the most to me are Manos Hands of Fate and Oh, what's that weird Mexican Santa one?
Oh, Santa Claus?
Yeah, and then the one where Santa goes to Mars.
Santa Claus conquers the Martians.
But you know what? I think we have that one on DVD, and then we also went to that live event that they did with Riff Tracks.
Yep, Riff Tracks Live.
Yeah, so. And I think they did Manos at that.
Mm-hmm. They've done quite a few.
And then Lotax had little stuff in the middle.
They get funny people. They get a few people do like some neat little shorts between there. So.
Oh, that was so long ago that we did that, though, right? That
Yeah.
had to be like 7 years ago, at least.
Oh, that was like 2009, I think. Yeah. Back then. That was hilarious. I think we saw Plan 9.
Yeah.
That was.
That does sound more like it. Yeah, Plan 9. Yeah.
Oh, they're so good. But yeah, even like, because they would riff on, you could tell they were running out because like the last film they riffed on is actually one that I think might have become a favorite, or at least the theme song has become with us, is Danger Diabolique.
Deep, deep down, deep, deep down. So seriously though, I like that song. And when we made a playlist for when I was giving birth, we put that on there. Partly because I thought that was pretty funny to listen to. I don't know. Do we actually play it though?
We didn't play it though.
I don't think we had enough time.
No.
I gave birth pretty fast. So.
That would have been great though if we played it.
Too distracted.
It's like oh, what's this song? It's like it's Danger Diabolique. It's like, what's it from? Oh, it's some Italian villain film.
Because I think when they suggested music, what they meant was more like new age stuff or something, because it was at a freestanding birthing center, kind of like hippie kind of crowd there. We're not that way.
No.
I'm just more of a skeptic in general, but I'm not even remotely spiritual of a person, actually. But you know,
different music, you know.
Stuff I had looked up at the time made it make more sense to do that route. But anyway, so that would have really thrown them off. I think the jokes I was cracking kind of made them. I don't know. They made a comment like, "This was a lot different than we expected," or something. Or "You're different than I expected," or something like that. Like, hopefully that was a good thing.
Yeah.
I didn't get the feeling that it was, though.
Yeah. Hi, Empress Boogie.
Yeah. She said hi a while ago. Hopefully she's still here.
Oh yeah, I looked down at the chat.
I said hi to her a while ago. You didn't hear me? Oh
yeah, I forgot. Do you have a favorite Minnesota movie? I'm pretty sure mine's Fargo. I'm between Fargo and a Simple Plan.
Yeah. Do I think mine's probably Drop Dead Fred.
Drop Dead Fred.
It did hold up for me as an adult, so I will stick with that. Fargo's good too, but I'm not as into the Coen movies as you are.
Well, not all of them are hit that well. I mean, they're.
I like them just fine. Oh, The Good Son was filmed here. I did not know that. That's definitely not my favorite. But,
The Good Son.
You know, if you like seeing Macaulay Culkin be pure evil, that's the movie to watch. But yeah, I guess now that I think about it, it was pretty Minnesotan, wasn't it?
Straight up serial killer, man.
Although, really, if you want serial killers, you go to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's just a crack on Wisconsin.
But if you want it cold, you got to go to Minnesota, where it's cold.
It's cold in Wisconsin too. It's even colder in North Dakota, from what I hear. I've never actually been there, but there's no trees or anything or hills to break the wind.
Yeah.
So it's like super extra cold there.
Yeah. It's further north. So.
And more prone to flooding. That and Iowa's a lot more prone to flooding, but at least it's a little warmer there, right?
Yeah.
Los Enchiladas. I've not heard of that one.
Los Enchiladas.
It's making me kind of hungry. It's it's a 1999 film written, directed by, and starring stand-up comedian Mitch Hedberg.
Oh damn, Mitch.
It has only been shown publicly a handful of times since. at comedy festivals and tributes to the deceased director, such as the one at the Paramount Theater in Anderson, Indiana on August 12th, 2010. It has never been publicly released for purchase or download, although Mitch's fan base has expressed a continuing desire for the film to become available.
Someday. Criterion, man.
Someday.
Man, release it in a bitching Criterion set with all of like Mitch's live stuff. Oh man. Sell it for $100. They'd buy it, man.
You have to agree with Drop Dead Fred, Pookie? Yes. I love Drop Dead Fred, and it held up for me.
Didn't for me, but I know it has a big cult following. Drop Dead Fred.
I know. There's a lot of movies I like that you don't like, though, and vice versa.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of times we agree, and I'll generally take your advice as far as new movies, unless it's an action movie. So
sure.
Then I know that you'll like it, and I won't. So.
Yeah. You know your mindset and you know who's talking. So.
Yeah, you just have to go through the filter. I believe you on animated movies almost all the time, though. I mean, I was reluctant to see Kung Fu Panda, but when I did, it was good.
I was too.
I had, because it looked bad.
Yeah, because I was very reluctant before I decided to step in, but then I read one of the other critics I trust, and they told me, no, man, they don't just like half-ass the kung fu. Like, it's actually a real cool kung fu story. It's like, I'll give it a shot. And like, yes, it is that good. And then I had to go out and convince other people, no, it's really a good movie.
It was a good movie. It was good. It was surprising. And the second one was good too, but the third one you can skip.
Yeah. Second one, I think, is probably the best one. Just because there's enough of the backstory given. The villain is way more interesting.
That is true, actually.
That action scene where they're climbing up the descending tower is badass.
Yeah.
So,
there's more conflict in that one.
There's more at stake.
General.
Yeah.
That helps. So, there's a movie called Stuart Saves His Family with Al Franken in it. I'd never heard of this. And it was directed by Harold Ramis. Ramis. Based off of his character from the Saturday Night Live sketches.
Stuart Smalley. I'm good enough. And doggone it, people like me.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And doggone it, people like me. Daily Affirmations by Stuart Smalley. So I'm not sure if that would hold up just because of his recent controversy.
It never held up.
Say what you will about that. But it's probably not very good anyway.
No, it never held up.
I need to pee real bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that one never held up, despite how much I like the character of Stuart Smalley. Especially just anytime I do interviews would be great because I always try to find a way to like passively insult whoever guest he had. Like, I think my favorite one was Charles Barkley. So like, now Charles, you don't always have to get the basketball inside the hoop. That doesn't make you a bad player. Oh, it was bizarre. But yeah, Harold Ramis never. He did some great stuff. Like, I mean, everyone loves stuff for like Ghostbusters, like his work on Caddyshack. But a lot of the films he's directed were very hit or miss. Like, he's done some films that just don't work. Like, I think probably one of the worst films I think he did was he did a film called Year One with Jack Black and Michael Cera. And it was essentially just kind of like a history of the world type deal where you have these two average guys and they're going around during like biblical times. They go to Gomorrah, they go through Stone Age and all that, and there's just like typical jokes with like a few comedians mixed in. So, yeah.
What a miss.
I was talking about how Harold Ramis was very hit or miss as a director.
Oh.
Like, he's done some films that do not hold up at all. Like, they completely missed the mark. So.
Bummer.
Which thinks it's like he's a great actor and he's a great writer too.
Yeah.
I mean, Ghostbusters, Stripes. Just go down the list. I even like some of his later stuff. I actually kind of dug him in Orange County, which surprisingly holds up. I didn't like it when I first saw it, and the more I keep going back to watch it, I kind of dig Harold Ramis and John Lithgow in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, I always like seeing John Lithgow when he explodes, and you don't see that as much in his films.
He's become more comedic.
He's become more well. He's kind of.
He's out. Well, no, actually, no. He's played serial killers more recently.
Yeah, he's gone the other way. Because he's played like a doddering old man in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He's played like a straight up villain in The Accountant. He's played serial killers and and like Dexter.
Yeah, in Dexter he played that serial killer for like a whole season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he can be scary.
But yeah, if you want to see him at like his kind of like loudest form of comedy, it's Orange County. Just because when you first see him, he's supposed to be this guy who's like negotiating deals. And like he's like insulting someone over the phone, just going like, "If you do this, I will eat your face." And then when it's
now picture Dick saying that more comedically in Third Rock from the Sun, because that's what I just pictured.
He has the best exchange when his son comes in and says like he wants to go to college to be a writer. It's like, what do you want to be a writer for? You're not oppressed. You're not gay. It's like, not all writers are oppressed or gay. Oh, they're not rich, I can tell you that. Well, a few of them are, like Tom Clancy, Stephen King, Maya Angelou. 3 people in the history of writing. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with that film.
So they have television shows on here, and I guess when I look at the top of the list, it says filmed or took place, basically, in Minnesota. Like, films have been filmed or set in the U.S. state of Minnesota. So, because I don't think that Mary Tyler Moore's show was filmed here other than for the establishing shot.
Yeah. It's
and was Coach actually filmed here? Because that looked like a set show, too.
Again, it's like, it's like when we were in New York and they showed you like, oh, here's where they filmed Friends. Like, no, they filmed the establishing shots.
Yeah.
And then they shot it at a studio in California. So.
Yeah. We're the only people who didn't clap on the bus when they played the song.
Yeah, because like...
Well, and I mean, the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, yeah, it took place here, but probably wasn't animated here. We don't... Well, Mall of America probably did get filmed here. I don't know.
Which one?
Is that a reality show?
Mall Cops? Probably.
Mall Cops, Mall of America. That sounds
that's a reality
show. So that was probably filmed here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a TLC thing, so.
Oh, man, there was in the sequel to Paul Blart Mall Cop, he went to a Mall Cop convention, and one of the people he met there was like a security guard from the Mall of America.
Because there's a place for fun in your life.
You're like, and they did no funny jokes with her.
Mall of America.
Mall of America.
Yeah, I don't know. In case you didn't know, the Mall of America... it's just kind of a mall. But then there's a theme park inside, so that part's fun. And there's some restaurants that you won't see outside of the Mall of America in the state of Minnesota.
Mall, it's practically a city now.
Oh, yeah, actually, because there's 2 hotels, right? And an office building.
Office space. I think they were trying to build an arena there at one point.
Yeah, maybe there's a wedding chapel there.
There's a chapel, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We don't go there that often.
Well, they're gonna get
We went there to go on the rides more recently. So I didn't go on any. I get too nauseous. But.
Well, you can tell they're trying to upgrade the mall to make it look more ritzy because like they redid the whole.
They've been trying to attract fancier retailers. Like Coach or something like that, or not Coach. Something that you more see in Edina or in Minneapolis rather than in a suburban mall.
Yeah.
So,
well, like the most...
Something you'd see in New York, Yeah, because
I think
they got a Zara recently, but I've never actually seen the store there. So.
Well, because the most, like, recent addition you can tell is, like, the food court. Like, the food court
They made a new fancy food court.
Yeah, it looks, like, futuristic.
That has Shake Shack at it. So that was the reason we went there.
Yeah.
We had Shake Shack.
And
when we went to New York, and this is our highlight of our trip, which is really pathetic.
But it's good burgers. But then
we're boring travelers.
But the other thing they're adding there is they're redoing the theater.
Yeah.
Because like all the
they have really fallen behind. So.
Well, because that's the trend now is like all of the movie theaters are trying to go upscale now.
Yeah.
Like even
To
AMC,
justify how expensive they are.
yeah, like even AMC now is adding like standing bars and stuff like that into there. So Mall of America is trying to step it up. They're like, at least from the design they showed, it looked like they're gonna go more fancier, like a bigger bar and like fancier food. And the tickets are retailed to cost like $25.
Oh gosh,
Minimum.
I'm not going there then.
It'll be interesting because at the same time they're also building an Alamo Draft House or Woodbury.
I'd rather drive my ass over to Woodbury and go to the Alamo Draft House than go to the Mall of America.
Yeah, it's clear that attraction is going to be more for tourists than anything. Because like if you're going to the Mall of America, you're going to spend a load of money. If you go to the theater, you might as well look like a damn palace or something like that. So
you do not know what you are looking at in your lap. Did your cat hop on your lap? I think you mentioned before you have a cat. Or are you talking about Mark? No, it's Pookie. It says, I do not know what I am looking at in my lap.
Uh-oh. Is it a cat?
Is it a cat?
I'm going to say a cat.
I'm going to go with, like, that's the safest answer.
My second choice is rat.
Ugh. Cat drop off or mouse on your lap.
In which case you will need a cat. So there you go. But it depends, you know, if the theater experience, if it can justify the $25, like if there's security in there, like if they find like cell phones and stuff, they kick you out, because that's like Alamo's motto, which they'd be justified for that. But again, like it's if it's paying just, you know, for like the decadence of it, because then it just seems like overly ritzy. It's like, I mean, do you really want to go out and spend that much money on like a fancy dining experience and like wonderful drinks and everything to go watch Avengers?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna start doing that, then people should start dressing up again to go to the movies, because people used to dress up to go to movies and plays, and now even on the rare occasion that I actually get to go to a play, I don't know, my mom will take me and she'll be wearing jeans, and I'll dress up, and it's like some people won't though.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're paying like, I don't know, I think on the cheap end it's like $60. No, maybe 50. It depends on if you're getting a deal somewhere, but
well, it's
pricey to go there to just wear like clothes that you'd wear going to like wherever.
But that's
lounge clothes or something.
And that's kind of like the weird thing about like having this kind of like ritzy place, where it feels like you should get dressed up to go there
at the mall.
Yeah, so like, where are you getting all dressed to? It's like, oh, I'm going to a fancy dinner and then going to see a film. Oh, we're at the Mall of America.
But the Mall of America does have nice restaurants, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Although not on that floor. Not on the floor that the movie theater's on.
No.
It's on the floor that the movie theater's on. It's Hooters, Corona, and Dick's Last Resort.
Yeah.
And Dick's Last Resort is the one where they insult you.
That's...
Pookie says they started doodling and zoned out.
Uh-oh.
That's why you don't know what you're looking at.
Uh-oh.
Then the image I see is weird. That actually sounds really interesting, and I'd like to see that image.
Yeah.
So she also says that we go more places than she has. Well, we try. We still haven't really left Minnesota hardly ever. So, yeah. And when we do go places, we don't know what to do. So
yeah.
That's probably why we don't do it very often.
Well, I mean, around town, like
around town.
I've been to like most.
You gotta go indoor places when you're in Minnesota, because you can't do anything most of the year otherwise.
Well, like I've been to like most of the theaters around the Twin Cities area.
But you get paid to do that.
yeah, but it's interesting to kind of see this evolution of how like AMC went from being completely like dumpy whenever we went there to having this upscale bar and not as dumpy.
So when the movie theater in the town I grew up in became an AMC, they were actually pretty nice. They were nicer than the Mann Theater, because the AMC had stadium seating and the Mann Theater didn't.
Yeah.
So you could actually see the movie, and that put the Mann out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whirly ball.
Yeah.
Which I still don't really know what rollerball is, and I don't care to.
It's some sports.
It could be fun. I don't know.
Yeah, something with like go-karts, something like that. So
I gotta let the dog out.
Okay.
Who
But
lets the dog out? Me.
You.
Me.
But it's weird to see these, just to see like kind of the evolution of these movie theaters, because like all of them right now are going through a massive change of having just bars all over the place in them now. So I keep seeing all these like press releases saying like, oh, we changed this cinema, it's now under different ownership, or oh, we added in like fancy new like pizza or coffee and stuff like that. Like I think like the imaging over in Willow Creek has probably changed the most, like because now I love the setup they have at the imaging, because now they don't even have like kind of like a ticket booth. Like you basically get the ticket at the same place you get concessions, and it's kind of convenient, because then you can both get your ticket and both get, if you're trying to get a coffee or something like that, you can get it all in the same place. So
the message is clear. They want you to buy concessions.
Well, that's
and
what we get the
maybe
money.
you need to get smashed to sit through how terrible some of these movies have been lately.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mark's a little bit more charitable with some of them than I would be, because I liked The Darkest Hour, but the last few movies, I don't know. It's about 50-50 when I actually do get to go see a movie in a theater, if I like it or not. So even the movies I like, I don't know.
It's almost
they feel a little bit more hollow than movies used to me. So
yeah. It's almost like you got a taste and an opinion of your own, It's like, it's yeah, it's pretty cool.
Don't most people?
I would hope so, But yeah, like movies, like it's tough with like the current climate, because like a lot of crap gets released.
Sequels.
Well, sequels and remakes are nothing new.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
it just feels like it's mostly that.
It can get daunting, because those are the ones that get the most press. Those are the ones that get the most marketing, and those are the ones that most people end up going to see.
Yeah.
And like
Disney remakes. Live action adaptations everywhere, things that don't need it.
and it's nothing new, because then I'll always get like the argument saying that, like, why don't they make any original films in Hollywood? It's like, well, they have. Here are a bunch of
dig for them.
Well, here are a bunch of new ones out that are at the theater right now. You can go see, and usually the reaction is, oh, well, I've never heard of them. I don't know if I really want to go see them. It's like, well, you deserve crap then if you don't want to go out and look for it.
Like I tried to steer my dad towards like a movie that sounded original. I gave him two options. The one I saw that I really liked, The Darkest Hour, or The Shape of Water, which is kind of more romantic. So I think they went with that, because I think my stepmom wanted to see a romance movie or something, and neither of them liked it.
It's not a.
Neither of them liked it. So,
well, the Shape of Water ain't
I actually haven't seen it myself, but the way Mark described it sounded really good. So.
It's not a conventional romance movie. That's true.
Well, I told them what it was about. And my dad likes science fiction and stuff, but he didn't dig it. So
I see. But well, it's at least easier to recommend in January. Just because there's so much crap that comes out in January that they start promoting more of the Oscar films. So then it's easier to recommend, because like they're doing a re-release of Dunkirk. And if you haven't seen Dunkirk, you see it. They're going to do a re-release of Get Out. So if you haven't seen Get Out, you should go see that. So
I haven't seen Dunkirk, but I think, as we've recommended before, see that one and The Darkest Hour. Darkest Hour is like a double feature. They tie in so well. Poogie says, any big city, my family and I look for bookstores and visit them. I say usually what we do is go to museums. Museums and natural things, which, we went to a lot of museums in New York, but you got really tired of them, and I still didn't get to go to all the museums that I wanted to go to.
A lot of museums.
You also don't like public transportation, so that was an issue.
Yeah.
And, we should have just gone to more plays while we were there.
Yeah.
It gets so expensive, but it was kind of our honeymoon. So
we went to the Guggenheim. So.
We're not beach people.
No.
So we go to museums, mostly art museums. Sometimes historical based museums.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been doing since I my mom likes to do road trips, her and her husband. So they took me on a few when I was younger, and we go to like, I think we went to like a Swedish or Norwegian museum in Iowa once, and that was pretty interesting actually.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do things like that. And tours of old houses I really enjoy. I went in Wisconsin, and I've been on some in Minnesota.
Yep. So historical landmarks.
Yeah. I don't like caves, though, because it makes my nose bleed.
Sure. Don't want that on your trip.
I like to go hiking, too, but we get too many complaints from our little one. She likes it.
Yeah.
But she always seems to catch a cold, too, if we do that. Like kids always catching stuff and then giving it to me.
Kids.
We went on a whole road trip to go hiking, pretty much.
Yeah.
She hikes 2 days. Every time we go, she has to pee after we get, like, just as we get really into the woods and stuff.
Yeah.
I have to pee. Well, the bathroom was like a mile away.
That's kids in a nutshell. You know?
Yeah. That's digressing too far.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's kids in a nutshell. You were mentioning how, like, I'm not sure, like Juno was supposed to, like, kind of be, like, take place in Minnesota.
It was. I think it was supposed to take place in St. Cloud.
Yeah.
After all, but it didn't. I mean, it obviously wasn't filmed there.
Right, because it was, because, like, Diablo Cody was obviously, she's from Minnesota, so she was writing it from that.
Yeah.
Like, another one like that I wish took place in Minnesota was Gran Torino,
Yeah. I knew it before you even said it. It takes place in Michigan in the movie, but you can see that it's Minnesota, and the writer originally wrote it to take place in Minnesota, but it's more expensive to film in Minnesota than it is Michigan.
Yeah.
So they changed it to Michigan, but I do believe we have a much higher Hmong population than Michigan does.
And that's, the big thing, because we took in, like, a huge amount of Hmong refugees. So
it's really popular to come to Minnesota because we have a lot of social programs. So we do get a lot of migration here, and I think we have a pretty wide open job market right now too. So
that's why, like, that story makes sense more for Minnesota. It's because it's all about, like, the Hmong family next door.
Yeah,
it makes sense to become.
Totally makes sense for Minnesota. It feels like Minnesota the whole time I watch it, but that's through the lens of someone from Minnesota. Pookie says that it's the same with her. They go to she goes to museums more than Disneyland. Never really seen it, and has gone to more than 20 museums. I've been to Disneyland's the one in Florida, right?
This is Disney World.
Okay, well, I've been to Disney World. You went to Disneyland.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for Disney World, and I have a friend who is obsessed with it, so no, I'm sure she doesn't care. But it's just, I don't like theme parks, and I don't like overly commercial things. So
I think I might have had more fun in Las Vegas than I did.
You went to Las Vegas?
Well, because we.
When did you go to Las Vegas?
Here's the weird thing.
Did you go with your parents?
Yeah, I went with my parents. Here's the weird thing. We went to Las Vegas, and then I think we met some of our family members midway between there, and then we drove to Disneyland.
Okay, because we've been together for most of our adult life.
Yeah, I wasn't at the age where you could do anything.
Where did you go to Vegas? We don't gamble either. So.
No, I was at the age where you couldn't really do much of anything fun in Las Vegas. So.
We don't really gamble. I hear Vegas has a lot of kind of theme parky and shows and stuff that are. I think they aim more towards family these days. They've stopped the "what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas" slogan, didn't they?
Yeah, I dug the hotel more.
Actually, I liked more. When I went to Florida, I liked Universal Studios more than Disneyland, kind of, because when I went to Universal Studios, I was more into like Nickelodeon and stuff.
Yeah.
But then when I went to Disneyland, I was also older, so I don't like Florida. No offense to anybody in Florida, it's too humid there for me.
People in Florida are like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into theme parks. I've gone to Ripley's Believe It or Not a few times. I think I've gone there twice. One in New York and one in Florida.
Yep.
And they pretty much are the same in both states.
Pretty much, yeah. Keep them the same there.
Madame Tussauds was cool, but it kind of creeped me out.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, I really dug that one. Just because because I remember there was that one where there was a hold up in Madame Tussauds because there was a wax sculpture where there was I think it was like an athlete or something posing, and someone was taking a picture in front of her.
Oh, it was in sync. And
it was in sync.
I thought that the person taking the picture was real.
That's the best.
I was waiting so she could take her picture before we crossed in front of her.
And everyone did, because like after we went through, we kept watching other people just stop and wait.
Because it looks like a real person. And RuPaul startled me because it was on top of the fountain and just so tall. It was like, whoa! I wasn't expecting it. You know.
That was the best prank.
Just whoa, you know. So. Yeah, it's interesting but creepy, which is up my alley, basically.
Oh, I just thought of another film. Took place in Minnesota. I Am Not a Serial Killer.
Yeah, I saw that on the list. But you know what? I just remembered.
What?
They were going to make a movie out of Ripley's Believe It or Not, and I've never seen it come to fruition. And I think Jim Carrey was supposed to be in it, either Jim Carrey or Tom Hanks.
Huh.
But that was years ago that I read that.
Yeah.
It must have never just never took off.
I think because they were trying to expand. I think they might have been trying for that in the 90s, because in the 90s they had a video game and they had a television series.
Yeah, maybe.
For Ripley's. So I think movies seemed like the next obvious route, but never took off.
It never took off.
Sad. But yeah, I kind of love I'm Not a Serial Killer the more I think about that film. Just because, I made a tweet about it, saying, 10 minutes in, it's like, okay, it's a very kind of, atmospheric type of horror film in kind of, a small rural Minnesota community. Mm-hmm. And then you start seeing Christopher Lloyd's character, and it's kind of like the old creep who comes in there, and then, a half hour through it.
We just watched this one, a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Yes, this one.
And
I didn't know what you were talking about at first.
And then a half hour into it, you start...
A twist at the end.
Yeah, you start... Well, a half hour in, I start expecting, okay, I think I know where this plot's going. Because they're kind of building up Christopher Lloyd. They're kind of building up this kid as, kind of a creepy kid who kind of, obsesses with murders and death. And then by the time we get to the end of the film, I'm like, okay, I did not see that coming at all.
It subverts your expectations in a good way.
It goes John Carpenter crazy towards the end.
Oh, yeah. It was really good. I like when we actually talk about movies I've seen.
Yes. Yeah, that...
I think it's interesting that on the reception portion of their Wikipedia for I'm Not a Serial Killer, it just references Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, man.
Why?
I guess there's not much to tell about it.
And I'm trying to get the link to
which stinks. I wish they'd talk more about it, because I think I attracted most of the people who worked on that, so I'd like to hear more about it. I know actually
the critics it's 92%, and then for audience it's 61%.
I see. Okay.
So
out of does it say how many reviews? It's got to be small. It was a very, very small release for that film.
48 for the critics.
Oh. Yeah.
And users...
Well, users should be pretty high.
Is it user rating that I'm going based off of?
Yeah, you can just do user rating, because those are usually pretty high. Anyway.
4,106 people.
Okay. Because I get the feeling a lot of people who didn't like it just they thought the twist was too much.
Let's see. Someone who had the critic that has it as fresh is there's a touch of Stranger Things about this lo-fi indie horror. Someone says it's a twisted treasure. One of the little splat mark ones, 1 out of 4, says the arbitrary value of life in I Am Not a Serial Killer makes its nature as an ostensibly character-driven mystery that is much harder to swallow.
Okay. So you didn't really dig the horror aspect, I guess.
I think, It's interesting to read the way critics write sometimes, because it's not usually the way people talk.
That's why it's written.
Yeah. I Am Not a Serial Killer is Dostoevsky in Minnesota, spiritually if not literally. Never quite escapes its adolescent inspiration. What I mean is, like, when we read that critic book last week...
Oh, and the critics are wrong. Yeah.
Just the overly lofty way that they talk.
Yeah.
It's just like a ivory tower kind of snobby way of talking.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You gotta, because like a lot of those like old reviews, because you gotta understand, like back in those days,
People
like
talked snobbier.
well, also they were kind of snobbier because like movie critic wasn't like an esteemed gig. It was just kind of like something that you threw to one of the other journalists. Who was kind of like, hey, anyone want to go see this one? Maybe? No? Anyone?
Okay, here's some audience reviews. Great movie until the end. Such a stupid ending. Ruined a perfectly good movie.
Wonderful.
And here's a 2-star rating. The acting throughout this was fantastic. I love the lighting and the camera angles. Christopher Lloyd and Max Records are brilliant together. Love their connection. Unfortunately, this film suffers from a ton of implausible scenarios, plus a disappointing sci-fi twist. The film went off the rails and never righted itself about 2/3 of the way through, and then turned into a unicorn and exploded in a cloud of money and Cheetos. Yeah, the twist might as well been that bizarre. Really bummed me out. That's from Zach C. I like that review.
I love that review.
That's good.
I disagree with them, but I love that so much.
Here's a 4-star review by an audience, Tim M. Intense throughout and funny when it needs to be. I Am Not a Serial Killer hits most of the right notes. Max Records turns in a nuanced performance as a sociopath. Christopher Lloyd hasn't been better in decades. The final scene is spine-tingling. I enjoyed it. It kept me on edge. Am I the only one who can't help but see Bernie Sanders every time Lloyd was shown with no hat and his glasses on? Final score is 7.7 out of 10. I like that review too. That was kind of funny.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
But yeah, I can see where he's coming from with Christopher Lloyd, because he just chooses like all these stupid roles.
Well, and you wonder about him
like,
too,
whatever.
Because like a lot of like his later roles, he's mostly just playing like kind of like doddering old fools, where you're almost kind of like wondering, like, man, is he really all there? And then you see some like I'm Not a Serial Killer, where he's kind of putting on the guise of being the doddering old fool, and then you kind of see like, okay, like he's still in there. Like there's still more than just kind of like the, oh, Marty. There's more in there than that.
He was good in this role.
Although that being said, I really did like his character in Going in Style.
Yeah.
Where he's playing the doddering old man, but he gets to have like the funniest roles.
I think people just get typecasted though.
I forget how it happens, but at one point he's running like a carnival, and I forget how it happens, but like someone like turns like the booth over to him, saying like here, run the booth. It's like whoa, what do I run the booth? It's okay, just keep the kids away. Some of them might have cocaine, all right? Something like that, and then it just involves like a bunch of kids coming up and just saying like, we don't have cocaine, go away. I don't know, I kind of dug him in that. I know it's the same type of role, but I don't know, I love Christopher Lloyd. Who doesn't? Any other weird reviews?
Oh, let's see. Someone says, it's been a long time since my jaw dropped watching a movie, and that must have been a positive thing because it's a 5-star review, so it wasn't dropped in like disgust. Yeah. I don't know.
And it's exactly what I thought. You know, it all depends, because that ending is so bizarre that you're either with it or you're not.
Yeah, some people reference a slow start. Someone thought it was a little muddled.
It's slow, but it's atmospheric. Like, it gets you into like the usual routine, and kind of a little bit of like the ennui of the neighborhood.
This one is funny. Joey S. writes, weird as hell, probably a 3-star, but fuck it, take the extra 5 stars. Good for you, movie, good for you. And then it said, changed it back to 3, I'm crazy. Yeah, that's pretty weird, man.
That's my favorite one so far.
Oh, this person thought it was boring.
Oh, man.
This other person says, I don't think I've ever started sweating and shaking watching a movie. This did it. Someone else says solid sci-fi thriller, slow ride, suspenseful and interesting. I guess it kind of also has to do with how you do with suspense in movies.
That too, yeah.
Because some people honestly just don't have the attention span anymore.
Yeah.
And this person thought it was weird and never went anywhere, which makes me think they didn't watch the whole movie.
Yeah. Or they don't dig horror sci-fi. So.
Yeah, you know, with a genre film, you need to know what you're going into. Like, for example, I don't really like action movies, so I'm sure John Wick is a perfectly good movie, but it's not my thing.
Yeah, it's a action movie connoisseur.
Yeah.
For that. But yeah, you kind
Is
of...
this based off a book?
Might be.
Someone said, didn't read the book or know it was based off a book, but the movie was a letdown. It seemed to build up to a mystery, but then it never unfolded. Acting was good, but the movie plot was very lame.
Oh,
never
they're full
unfolded,
of it.
So they didn't watch the
Clearly
movie.
they
And
didn't get to the end.
why are they bringing up a book if they didn't watch it? I mean, read the book.
They want
the point.
They want to sound intellectual.
Yeah, well...
It's like,
their lack of punctuation at the end of their sentence and strange use of ellipses contradicts, having brought up a book.
They want to say the book was better, but they didn't read the book.
Man, I wish I could read Spanish, because there's a very long one in Spanish.
There's a few Spanish ones getting there.
Lost interest after 45 minutes. Oh.
Dang. Man,
that one's super long.
If he only stuck around just a few more minutes, he would have been pleasantly surprised. Eh?
I know, right?
You gotta stay till the end. Because, I mean, like, some
Best
people...
indie film ever. Love Max? ? Actually, after best indie film ever, there's a whole bunch of exclamation points, and it says Love Max, and then, like, a whole bunch of question marks. She gave 5 stars.
It's like, I want to make hearts, but I don't know how to. Maybe if I put a whole bunch of question marks next to each.
Well, this person gave a spoiler as their review, so F them.
Oh, man.
Like, the ending spoiler.
Don't spoil the ending, man.
As, the whole sentence.
That's the best part.
Really?
It's like, there's no point in recommending Soylent Green. If you give it away, then there's no point in watching it.
Honestly, there's no point watching Soylent Green, because everybody knows that line, or they should by now.
But if you haven't, just if you find that one rare person who hasn't seen it or hasn't heard that line, tell them to go watch it in secret. Like if say go watch Soylent Green. Don't ask anyone about it. Don't look up clips. Don't tell anyone that you're going to watch it. Just watch it in secret. Then maybe you can appreciate the mystery of it.
I keep seeing ads for Phantom Thread.
Yeah, that's the big one right now.
I keep thinking he lost a lot of weight. He looks super skinny.
Day-Lewis goes all out, man. Will really push for that Oscar now, so which makes sense why there's only one film coming out this week, because I think a lot of Oscar films are expanding, so no one wants to get in on that market. I think they just released The Last Maze Runner just because they wanted to get out of the way. So.
Paddington 2 is 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Of course it is. How could anyone hate Paddington? It's so wonderful.
The audience score is 90%.
Oh, they're full of shit.
Yeah, their kid probably dragged them to it, and then they were really salty about it.
Yeah. How could you not enjoy Hugh Grant in that movie? It's so wonderful.
3.5 stars. Like it much more than I expected to. The first one was just blah. This one, however, was quite fun. Went to it only because we'd seen everything else, but this was better than a lot of other films we looked forward to. Just fun, funny, and heartfelt. Nothing wrong with that. And it looks like an older gentleman.
Yeah. I was surprised too when I came out of the preview screening. There was an old couple there with no kids in tow, and they were just beaming when they came out.
I think some of the older folks like these kind of movies because they're not full of violence and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's slapstick, but I mean, it's heart is in the right place, and it's gentle, and it's got a inspiring message, and it's just genuinely funny in that kind of like dry British wit way.
Yeah.
So.
Here's someone who put not interested. This movie stinks. Had little to no plot. Very cheesy and dumb.
Man, someone don't like Paddington. Man.
I'm not even sure that means that she actually saw it, though.
Someone's gonna get a face full of marmalade.
Not interested. Man, someone wrote a book for the review, I swear.
They wrote a dissertation on Paddington 2 and how it's secretly a metaphor for politics.
I don't know, I didn't read the whole thing. Let's see, not S big fan. They did a good job with the first one. This just seemed rush. It's still lighthearted fun. A recommend when it comes out on Netflix or Hulu. A recommend.
Does he recommend it, I guess?
You haven't seen... Pookie, you haven't seen Paddington 2 or what is it? I'm Not a Serial Killer?
I think it's Paddington 2 because I think Pookie was talking about Paddington recently.
I didn't see Paddington 2. I only saw the first one, and I don't know. It was okay, but it's not really my thing.
Because there's a lot of...
I don't really want to go. I just stay home and enjoy the peace.
Because there's a lot of people who are nostalgic for Paddington, so they're kind of interested in it since everyone's really digging on it.
This is a really weird review for Paddington. Not interested. If they want to make homosexual movies, that's fine. Just warn people so they don't waste their time and money to watch that stuff. They warn about everything else. It's a movie about a bear.
It's a bear.
Not really thrilling or working for me. It started fairly well in its build-up, and its pacing was certainly okay, but overall, I personally didn't feel it lived up to the gripping tale of the first film. Gripping tale? Did we see the same movie? That being said, it was still somewhat enjoyable at moments, and I'm glad many others could enjoy the film more than myself. Just thought it was a poor running that became tiresome as the minutes strolled on. That was a 1.5 review.
I don't know. I think Paddington 2 was more gripping than the first one, I think. Just because the first one is just
it's a kid's movie, and that's all I really feel about it. It was okay. But it was okay. It was kind of cute, I guess.
Well, I think it's not as convoluted as like the first one with like the poacher trying to find Paddington for revenge and all that.
Yeah, that was weird.
This one is just Paddington wants to buy some for Auntie and gets accused of robbery. And you just gotta foil the criminal. It's sweet.
All you want to do is buy something.
Yeah. He's the sweetest bear. He brings out the best in everyone. He makes marmalade sandwiches.
What this half review is, I can't get over the strange look. And that's the whole sentence.
I've heard that with some people too. Is like they look at Paddington and like they can't get over like how weird like the eyes look because the eyes look too real for a bear.
Oh gosh.
That's supposed to be kind of a little bit anthropomorphic, not a lot, but especially since he's supposed to be talking in like human tongue. So
this other review was perhaps the worst film I have ever had the misfortune of having to see. It was so bad, in fact, I had to leave not even 30 minutes into it. The plot was outlandishly stupid. The humor was perhaps some of the worst I've ever had the misfortune of having to hear. I'm generally shocked and offended it was rated so highly. Dude, what is your problem?
He just revealed it in the last sentence. He wants to be contrarian.
I see.
He wants to be one of those people who, they see the Rotten Tomatoes score before they go in, and they instantly say, like, well, it can't be that good. So even if it was a good film, he's still going to be like, well, it's not as good as they say.
Here's another half star. Movie got Movie got so boring, me and my daughter fell asleep on it.
We can't help it if you're tired, man. It's just it's the luck of the draw. Man, I didn't see any dozing kids at the big screening that I went to.
Just the glee in your young child's eyes.
Oh man, these kids were digging it more than any film I've ever seen. Because usually there's like a few kids who are whining or crying or running around during that. Every kid in the theater was engrossed with this entirely. Just because it's a fairly simple story. There's not a whole lot of stuff you gotta like comprehend with like the plot going on here.
Someone says this is the same adventure as the first one.
I disagree entirely. Disagree entirely. There was no treasure hunting in the first one. They actually found more. I like the script better because they find more stuff for the Brown family to do. Because the Brown family always kind of felt like the kids, they couldn't do much with them. Now the kids play a bigger part.
I have more fun reading like the negative reviews for this.
Of course. 'Cause
This movie is ass. Nothing more than pandering and trying to be hilarious. I found myself getting dumber faster watching this one than I did watching the Emoji Movie. Do yourself and your kids a favor. Don't bother with this one. I like to read people shitting on things for some reason.
Oh man, he's getting dumber. His words, not mine.
Boring. Why is the bear even alive? Like, he is a bear. Go back to the woods. Besides that, I felt like the movie was poorly timed and felt like it dragged. That was a dude, but for some reason I felt like saying it like a valley girl or whatever. Like Lumpy Space Princess.
I hated it. The bear looked fake as hell.
Part 1 was better. This was all over the place. Warning, this film was created by the Weinstein Company, then sold to Warner for $28 million. As such, the Weinstein brothers indirectly benefit from its distribution via Warner. If you wish to send a message to Hollywood about its complicity with the sexual predator Harvey Weinstein, then boycott this film along with any other film within the Weinstein Company library, no matter who provides the distribution, no matter whether each and every film is renamed to hide its source. You know, other people, worked on this film than, like, one producer affiliated with the Weinstein Company.
Yeah, and Warner is
and his name might even not actually be attached completely to this movie either. So.
Yeah, and also, this film is not even made by the Weinsteins, so, I mean, like the Weinsteins will get some money, but Warner is ultimately going to wind up with most of the money from this.
We say as if that guy is ever going to hear that, but
yeah, but just in case anyone.
That just annoys me because it has nothing to do with Weinstein.
Especially for being a British production that's already been out through other companies for a while is like
it's ridiculous.
It's the point.
This one is a really weird comment, too. Yes, it had its cute parts, but honestly, it felt like pro-refugee propaganda. And that kind of ruined it for me. I still think it was entertaining. I love the window washing scene, but I don't like pushing political ideology at kids.
Oh, boy.
Also, it got too long. Hugh, with an 8 in the middle, Grant stole the show. Mrs. Brock kind of got on my nerves. That's a 1.5-star review.
Hey, knew it was gonna happen. Why do we? You know what? She's exactly like the Peter Capaldi character.
Well, so here's the opposite view of the same thing. Like 2.5 stars. Politically subliminal anti-Brexit movie. Like I said, it is pro-refugee then, isn't it? I don't know. Did it have anything to do with Brexit? Probably not.
No, this is just them hunting for politics in anything that they watch.
People want to be outraged.
Yep. They look for everything.
Rubbish. All the old Star Wars films rolled into one. I think you commented on the wrong movie. Just saying.
Oh my god, did I get the wrong film? Oh no. Yes, Emperor Spooky. Paddington is a treasure. He's precious.
We should probably move.
Yeah,
on.
I
Sorry.
guess so. I don't know. I kind of had fun reading.
I was just amused by that.
I was amused too because it's fun to read some of those audience reviews, especially kind of like what they have like the Twitter account for Amazon reviews.
Yeah, it's funny. Tyler Perry's "Boo to a Medea" something something is 6%.
Mm-hmm.
That could be
predictable. I mean, it looks like the same. If you ever seen like the Tyler Perry movies, they're quickly slapped together. They're usually the same jokes, and they usually involve. Like a simple message towards the end that they force in there.
I've seen breakdowns explaining that it's sexist, or that his movies, like, he doesn't seem to like women, but, they say that about pretty much everything these days, so I don't know which to believe and what not to believe. They're pretty preachy towards women in there. Okay. It's like most of the ones that I've seen are usually about, like, some woman makes a mistake, or some woman tries to like run away from home or pursue a life of drugs. She's terrible.
Yeah, like I remember, like I did see.
So he's against women, is that it?
Well, like I did, kind of. It seems like I think he wants to try to empower women, but he gets kind of lost between the jokes and his moral message between there. Because I watched like Boo! A Medea Halloween, and the overarching plot is about this girl, this teenage girl disobeying her father. And basically Medea saying like, ooh, Dad, you gotta whip her butt and like tell her you can't do this. And so it's basically, the dad trying to be more authoritarian and the teenager saying, man, I shouldn't just, shit all over my dad.
But I'm pretty sure with teenagers, the more authoritarian you are, the more you drive them away.
Yeah. But not in Tyler Perry's world, because then it's pretty... And it gets very preachy. It literally gets into like a rant about how, kids should obey their parents and everything, so... But that's par for the course for Tyler Perry films. So.
I was reading the audience reviews for I, Tonya.
I, Tonya, yeah.
I always feel like it should be Tonya
I,
because
Tonya.
it has an O in it, not an A. Mm-hmm. I found the half-star review.
Okay.
This movie is abhorrent, making a hero and or victim out of a thug, a big middle finger to anyone who thinks such.
Yeah.
That's my apprehension about this movie too, but I'm not going to give it such a low review. I wouldn't give it a low review because of that. I'm sure it's a decent movie.
Yeah. but that seemed, but yeah, that almost kind of seems like they didn't see the film. It's just based like alone on like the premise.
That's what I was
it.
thinking. Yeah. Because the premise bothers me, but I'm sure it's a good movie. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like if you want to spit in the soup, you got to come in the kitchen. So. Like go in and see the movie, then you can spit in that soup as much as you like, man.
It didn't register to me and is overrated, makes Tonya sort of a star again, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, for a while I didn't know what you were talking about when you said I, Tonya, because
I told you.
Because it's not spelled that way.
Well, I told you about it.
And then I saw a trailer and I'm like, oh, it's about Tonya Harding.
Yep.
I saw on Explore Minnesota, they have a top 10 Minnesota film destinations.
Okay.
So they've got a Prairie Home Companion, so that's the Fitzgerald Theater, and they also suggest Mickey's Diner. Grumpy Old Men, so they suggest Lake Rebecca Park Reserve. And the town of Wabasha, which honestly I've been there. There's not that much there. No. North Country. Oh, I did see that movie. I think. No, maybe I didn't.
The Frances McDormand one?
Charlize Theron.
Oh, sure. Was it Charlize Theron?
It says starring Charlize Theron.
Okay. For some reason.
Takes place on the Iron Range. I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, I think Frances McDormand might be in that one.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I remember it did take place in the Iron Range.
And so they have a link to the Iron Range and the cities around there on the North Shore, Duluth, Ely, Evelyn, Grand Rapids, and Hibbing. I don't really think of Duluth as being part of the Iron Range, but I guess it is.
Yeah.
I think more of Hibbing because they had to move the whole town over at some point. I work with someone from Hibbing, and it's like no big deal to the people of Hibbing.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, too.
We
you
like
do what you need to do to get jobs, I guess.
Yeah. We like to absorb cities around here, so... It's like, oh, where do you... Like, I used to work in New Brighton, and they're like, oh, no, it's located in St. Paul. And they're nowhere near St. Paul, but, we're close to St. Paul, so they just call it St. Paul. So...
What What does that have to do with Hibbing?
Well, because you were saying like you didn't really consider like that part of Duluth.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not that...
Not really, but it's...
I mean, I don't consider Duluth part of the Iron Range because that's not a big thing.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal there. They have other tourist draws.
Yeah.
Whereas Hibbing has a giant, like... The landscape is massively mined. Like, if you go there and you can go to the edge of the mine, they have, like, a gift shop, and you can look at construction equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just massive, like, deep dunes where these massive trucks look like dots in the distance, you know, because it's just that deep.
Vast.
It's kind of interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting to look at where the old, you could see the old foundations of the houses that they had moved and stuff.
Yeah.
I find that kind of stuff interesting, so I like history.
I actually got inspired to write all my books when I was out there. So.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, that's lucky. Yeah. I'm glad something came of that. That was a long trip.
Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool.
Let's see, Purple Rain, so that's 1st Avenue and 7th Street entry.
Mm-hmm. Not anymore.
Is it not there anymore?
I don't think First Avenue is anymore. Yeah.
It's a pretty popular place. Well, didn't they have a bunch of... They had some kind of water damage or something, didn't they?
Yeah.
And Paisley Park, yeah. That's a museum now. We should go there.
Yeah.
I always used to drive by it when visiting relatives, and my mom's ex had told me, oh, that's where Prince lives. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, really? It looks like a strange kind of house, but it's actually his studio. But he did live in Chanhassen, and one of my friends saw him riding his bike once, too, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Local celeb, man.
Yeah,
well, it's weird
in case, you know, you're not from Minnesota, Prince is a big effing deal here in Minnesota. Like, a real big deal in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
We are like that with pretty much everyone from Minnesota, though, so...
Yeah. Well, like, when he died, like, Paisley Park just exploded over there.
Their tributes
were,
like, mad, because he stayed in Minnesota. He kept his...
Yeah.
He kept things in Minnesota. He was loyal to us, so...
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know The Good Son took place at the Palisade Head in Silver Bay. I wanted to stop there, but that was when you were driving and you wouldn't stop, so...
You know, so you were Macaulay Culkin through the dummy into traffic.
Yeah, there's a lot of it was in Tettagooch State Park. We did go to Tettagooch, though. We just didn't go to the Palisade Head. Mm-hmm. Which was, I think it had a different place that you stopped off at. Mm-hmm. Well, they had stuff that showed the Split Rock Lighthouse. I don't remember that.
And The Good Son?
To the southwest of the Apostle Islands of Wisconsin, across the lake to the south.
Oh,
Some rocks, I guess, some of the shore.
Yeah, there's a few scenes around the rocky, or some rocky cliffs. I think they might have shot that there. Yeah.
See, there's beautiful girls with the Bryant Lake Bowl. Is Bryant Lake Bowl still there in Uptown?
I think it is. Yeah, there. Yeah, I think the Bryant Lake Bowl's still there. Yeah.
Oh, bye, Pookie. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, later, Pook.
Nice to talk to you.
Well, it's weird because like some of that stuff, because I don't think First Ave's in there anymore, and they shot Graffiti Bridge here, and like the bridge they actually used, which was in Eden Prairie, I think, is gone too. So
well, they took the graffiti off at the least, I think.
Yeah.
Jingle All the Way, the Mall of America. I don't know if it was actually filmed there, though, was it?
It was,
oh,
yeah.
Wow. So they mentioned Nickelodeon Universe and Sea Life, Minnesota. Neither of those were called that when that was filmed here, though.
No. Which is actually...
I don't think Sea Life was there at the time, either.
Which is so funny if you watch the film called The End of the Tour, in which... the character in there, the writer, takes his interviewer on a trip on his interview tour to Minnesota, and he ends up going to the Mall of America in 1996. So they filmed it in the Mall of America, but because like the food court that they film in is like, just outside like the amusement park there, they basically tried to cover up all the Nickelodeon advertisements there, which were clearly not there in 1996. So there's just these big brown spots in the distance.
No, because it was Camp Snoopy in 1996.
Yeah. Like they went the extra effort to make the theater look like it did in 96, but but just like, man, we want that food court scene, but we want the theme park, but it's just gonna look weird.
Let's see, Sweetland, in the prairie grasslands is where that took place. They suggest the city of Montevideo to experience the history of life on the prairie. And then they recommend the historic Chippewa City, the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Depot, and the Swenson Farm Museum. I don't know.
I don't know.
The Mighty Ducks. They recommend the St. Paul Winter Carnival, to which I have never been to. I don't really like to be in St. Paul. No offense to anybody in St. Paul, but I'm not on that side of the river.
I went to it once, outside of like the Ice Palace. There's not a whole lot to enjoy there.
I don't like to be cold.
Yeah, that too.
Let's see. The St. Paul Hotel, Landmark Center, Ordway. My prom was at the Landmark Center.
Now, if you go to, I think in like Mighty Ducks 2, there's a scene where I think they're just rollerblading all around like the U of M. So there's big blatant shots of like the U of M campus around there, and then I think around like Washington.
Sissy, stop.
Yeah.
Licking the tablecloth. Gross. I think if you ever go by the U of M, if you go on the student bridge, and they have all the clubs have murals on the inside of the student bridge, and it's public, so I guess I'd recommend that. I don't know. I think that kind of stuff is interesting. Maybe other people don't.
There's some cool stuff to see there.
For Fargo, all they really recommend is the Brainerd Lakes area, which I don't think it takes place in the Brainerd Lakes area. It takes place in White Bear Lake, which used to be a resort area, I guess. I don't know if it is anymore. Well,
for most of the sites, because most of the film that takes place around Minneapolis, like there's tons of, like, I know the exact locations every time we see them, but it's mostly just like, parking lots or the Radisson.
Yeah, nothing interesting.
Nothing much interesting there.
I don't even remember, in the Nicollet Mall area, they took out a lot of stuff. Do they have anything interesting there anymore? I don't even know.
I haven't been down there recently, so I
don't like to go downtown that much.
Not sure. I'm sure something. I know there's. Oh no, wait. I think they're trying to replace some stuff down there. I think Target's buying up some new spots around there for their offices, and I think they're trying to expand their retail. There's some because a lot of stuff's moving out, but I think a lot of companies are buying new stuff down there. Certainly one of the spots for Jingle All the Way. I want to see where the real carnival, the real parade took place. Because, not much to see down Hennepin either.
Yeah, I don't know.
For the Minnesota parade.
It's a city.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have the Holidazzle anymore.
Yeah.
And they don't have Macy's isn't there anymore. But they stopped doing it. It was more while they were still Marshall Fields or Dayton, where they had on the top level they had a display, animatronics or something, around the holidays. I think it went on the same time as the Holidazzle, so I think that's the only reason I saw it. Was not really that into that either.
Yeah, well.
I think one of those big lakes in one of those fancy areas used to have like a paper boat race or something, but they don't do that anymore either, but I don't remember what that was a part of. It's a city. Lots of things go on there. I think maybe Lake Harriet?
Go to the Radisson. Good.
Radisson's a chain.
Yeah.
Go to one of the non-chains.
Yeah.
That'll be more interesting, right? No, I'm sure the chains are just as good. I don't
know. No offense against the chains.
Oh, should I know? It's not like I go to hotels very often in nearby cities.
Yeah. Well,
other than for conventions, I guess, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not all the time, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's too expensive.
Yep. All right, so...
Are we done?
I think that, yeah, I think...
Okay.
Went about as far as we can go. So
we don't have a whole lot more to say.
No, other than Futile and Stupid Gesture and Loving Vincent were both great.
Yeah, we stopped talking about them a while ago.
I know. Just in case anyone's wondering. So, yeah, go check them out. I'll be back next Thursday with reviews of... We're actually going to do theater reviews now. We're going to have reviews of Peter Rabbit and the 1517 to Paris.
Oh, you'll be able to give a child's perspective of Peter Rabbit, too. So
yep, so it'll be one of those Saturday screens with all the kids. So.
I will not be seeing either of those, so I'll go back to not talking as much, I guess. I'll just go back to asking more questions and less interrupting, right?
Yeah.
You can catch my stream Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Vision Goo, although I believe it broadcasts to your channel as well.
Yep, it's hosted here.
I think I'll mostly be doing that one alone. Might have Mark pop in at the end. We'll see.
Yeah.
Depends on how tired I am.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a wrap.
See you later, folks.